Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Before School podcast. I'm your host Mark, and today I'm so excited for our guest, Dr. Bruce Lipton. He is a pioneer in the field of epigenetics, which is the study of how behaviors, environment, and other external factors affect the way our genes work without changing the underlying DNA sequence itself, which basically means that genes are not the blueprint to health outcomes. You know, genes are not like this death sentence or this thing that's written in stone that means that you're going to have this determined outcome. It's actually our beliefs, our lifestyle, and things that we can control that affect which genes turn on and off, which means that we are the authors of our own story and we can control our own destiny. We are not just these victims of fate. And what I love about Dr. Bruce Lipton's teachings is he really goes into our subconscious programming and tells us how we can rewire our brain in order to have our patterns of behavior align with our intentions. Really valuable stuff. I think about it every day. And before this podcast begins, I just want to mention that unfortunately, Dr. Bruce Lipton is struggling with a bit of a health issue. He has a cancerous tumor in his throat, which did affect the ability for him to talk. But I'm so grateful because he powered through this conversation. He has incredible energy. He's in his 80s and he's still speaking all over the world and writing books. He's really inspiring, and I'm so glad this conversation happened in person. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Lord, the door is closed.
Okay.
Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Mark, I am happy to be here with you, and thank you very much for the work you do on this planet, because I'm trying to do the same thing, wake people up, and there's different ways of doing it, and I so enjoy the way you do it because the illustrations bring a different concept to the mind than just words alone. And you do an amazing job, and thank you very much.
Wow, that truly means a lot coming from you, because I hold you in very high regard. I look up to you, and you're paving the way
I'm
for...
short. You don't have to look up. I'm just straight ahead.
But I love your energy. I love your attitude, and your ideas have just changed my life, truly.
Well, I'm very happy because they're not my ideas. I downloaded them and became a student myself. So I'm a student of the ideas that were downloaded.
Okay, so how do we download ideas like that?
We have to start to be open and listen, because we have an inner voice, and people rarely acknowledge the power of that inner voice. And the inner voice is it's like a guiding voice. It sees what you're doing and what's going on, offers insights, and then if you ignore them, it's at your own peril. I've done this before until I woke up and realized every time I didn't really listen to a warning offered, I paid a price for it. And then I woke up one day, I was in Canada, and the voice said that the car, my daughter and I were in the car, and we would go visit a friend, and they said, lock up the car. And I said, oh no, we're just going to be a few minutes. And we came back, somebody had opened the car and took all our stuff, including all my lecture slides in those days. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, this is where my lectures come from. I have no more slides. And the voice said on the way out, lock the door. And I said, I was thinking rational, I don't need to do that. I didn't listen.
But maybe on some higher spiritual level, the person that stole your stuff discovered your information, and that changed their life for the better.
I hope so. I'm sure they probably didn't care for all the Kodachrome slides, the 200, 300 slides that I use in my lectures. But I looked at the positive side. Time to make all new slides. And so, rewrote the programming and created a whole new way of getting into it, which was a very positive aspect in the end. But it was a shock to the system to realize all the lecture material disappeared. And it was like, oh, wow. But learn to live with things. And the best thing about humans versus all the other animals is humans have a character of adaptability that other animals don't have. We can adapt to anything. That's why people live in the Arctic, they live in the tropics, they live everywhere around the planet, because we can adapt to the environment. We can adapt to anything. So this is very unique because it gives us this opportunity to be very creative. And this is what the conscious mind has compared to other organisms. We are creative. We have imagination. With imagination, you can manifest. Hey, wouldn't it be great to go to the moon? Yeah, well, people said that for 1,000 years. Until what? Until we went to the moon. And the whole idea is, if we can imagine it, we can manifest it. And this is so unique because what if you want to imagine heaven on earth? I go, yeah, we can manifest that too. It's really kind of wonderful, the ability that we have with our nervous system to turn lemons into lemonade.
Well, the line that you just said, we can create heaven on earth, I heard you say that probably 5 or 6 years ago, and that seriously changed my life, because you said heaven is a creative place. It's different for everybody.
Yes.
And so when we're creating, imagine if we were born into heaven. When we're creating it wrong, hell is here. And when we're creating it right, heaven on earth is here.
Right. As we've mentioned once before, the movie The Matrix is not science fiction. It's a documentary, because the premise of the whole movie is we've all been programmed. I go, that's not a premise. That is a reality. Every human is programmed for the first 7 years of their life. And then we live off of this program. But the best part about the movie is the fact that you could take this red pill and get out of the program. And I said, well, what would it be like to get out of the program? And I realized the red pill that we experience, almost everybody, is called falling in love. So your life could be blah, blah, blah every day, and then you meet this special person. 24 hours later, you have a whole life experience that's quite different. It's like the honeymoon. Well, what is the honeymoon? Heaven on earth, that's what it is. I go, well, wait a minute. Where does that come from? I said, it was always there, except that 95% of our life is coming from the program that we downloaded. And people have to recognize whoever, from wherever you download the program, do they offer the life that you want? Does it provide what you have, your wishes and desires? Did the program feed you that? And I go, most never, really. 60% of the programs that we download before age 7 are disempowering, self-sabotaging, and very limiting beliefs. So the whole idea is what? It's like the program is not our friend most of the time. And then I said, well, why do we play the program? And the answer is, well, it's interesting because quantum physicists from 1927, day one, quantum physics, it was recognized that the mind is the creator of our life experiences. The mind is the creator. This is fundamental to quantum physics. And let me emphasize, most people don't have any real idea what quantum physics is about. We should, because physics, by definition, is the science of mechanisms, how things work. We are all programmed with a belief in what's called Newtonian physics, which separates the universe into physical things and invisible things, matter and energy. So we look at the universe as having two realms that don't interact. Matter affects matter, energy affects energy, but according to that old physics, matter and energy don't talk to each other, so there's a separation. And interesting, because when this Newtonian physics really took hold, we have to recognize that the concept of consciousness and spirituality are not physical elements, they're energy elements. So medicine from day one said, consciousness, spirituality, it's not relevant to your life, that's energy. What is relevant to your life is anything physical, hence the pharmaceutical industry, which makes physical things, okay? And we brought into the dual realms of a universe when in 1927, quantum physics came to the reality that if you take the atom apart, at the bottom, and take it to the finest little piece, it's not matter, it's actually energy. So energy is the foundation of matter. So matter is a strange form of energy. What was the point? It's not a dual realm universe. Everything is energy. I illustrate my lectures a rainstorm and raindrops hitting a pond and the ripples that come off. I say, the ripples that you see on the pond are a reflection of energy. Energy is shaping the water. So I say, well, energy is invisible. I know that, but the shape of the force of energy is wave. That's what the ripples are. And I go, and what about that? I said, well, there's no edge to the wave. Where does the wave end? I said, no, it just keeps going. I go, so why is this a very interesting point? And here it comes. Everything is made out of energy. Everything is making waves. The waves are entangled with each other. Why? Because there's no border of separation. You're entangled with everything in the universe. The chair I'm sitting on is energy. I'm entangled with it. My dear friend Mark over here is energy. I'm entangled with him. I'm entangled with the moon. I'm entangled with Saturn. What's the point? Everything in the universe is made out of energy, and everything that's made out of energy is entangled. There is no separation of us from the world and the universe around us. We are integrated into everything. It changes the whole belief thing of like, oh, matter is this piece and that piece. I go, no, you see it as physical matter, but it's actually an expression of energy, and all energy is entangled. We're connected to each other. We're connected to the planet. We're connected to the ecosystem. And the part that in today's world, which is really very strange, what's happening, is that somehow or other, from the beginning of the Bible stories, humans came here as a separate entity, separate from nature. Nature was created, and then humans were added like an add-on option. Well, that led to the belief that we and nature are separated from each other. Well, this is the biggest mistake, wrong vision I could ever imagine. Why? We evolved from nature. We cannot live without nature. Nature and us, we're part of the garden. We came from the garden. But with the way our attitudes are, that separates us from the garden. We've been destroying the garden without recognizing it. You're destroying your own source. We cannot survive. And that's why they say, well, in space research, where's the planet with what? Water, temperature, things that fit our environment. Why? Because you want to see where humans can live. You've already created what the environment was necessary for those humans. And yet, here we are destroying our environment with some phony ideas that, well, when it's destroyed, we'll all move off to another planet. And I go, wake up! This is not happening, folks. The reality is this. This is where we live. This is how we live, and we live in a garden. It was a garden until we separated ourselves from that garden. The Native Americans, of course, everything they understood was they were gardeners in a garden. We're disruptors within a garden. Destroying the ecosystem without recognizing you're destroying your own source. And the biggest problem on this planet, and I go, we have chaos all over the planet. I go, yeah, there's all kinds of chaos. Oh, there's economic chaos, political chaos, social chaos, religious chaos, racial chaos. I love it. The new one is even gender chaos. And everyone's focusing on the chaos, but they're not recognizing the bigger problem is above all of it and is connected to all the chaos that comes from the bigger problem. And so what's the bigger problem? I said, it's not being told to the public. I go, what is it? That it takes the resources of 1.6 planets, Earth, to support today's civilization. Well, it takes the resources of 1.6 Earth? I go, we have a problem. I go, what is it? There's only one Earth. Where are you getting the 0.6 extra resources? The answer, we're destroying the planet. We're undermining the web of life. We're polluting everything and, destroying the ecosystem to get all those resources. And the fact is, but we're running out and we're destroying the environment and getting those resources. And NASA scientists have revealed that within the next 20 years, that civilization is facing an irreversible collapse. Why? We're not sustainable. It's as simple as that. And the point about it is, well, what do we have to do? And I say, we can no longer live the way we are living. We are facing an opportunity, well, we're facing a choice point, actually. If we don't change, this is going to be really bad coming up because it's getting worse every day. But we're given an opportunity to evolve to a higher level of awareness and consciousness and learning to live in harmony with the planet. So we're facing this choice right now. Now here comes the bigger problem. The problem is today's culture, today's civilization. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, how can you fix it? I said, you can't fix it because it's broken at the very foundation. So if you want to put Band-Aids on this house and the foundation is rotten, it's not going to work. You have to start with a new foundation. Well, what does that mean? Destroying, breaking down the conventional civilization to give us an opportunity to start a new version. And so when you're looking at the world and you see all the chaos, I go, hey, this is great. People look at me and say, what do you mean this is great? And I go, because the chaos is a sign of breakdown. And the sign of breakdown is necessary for us to build something new. And so while most people are in fear, oh my God, it's falling apart. I go, if it doesn't fall apart, you don't want to see the fear that's going to happen from that, because life is going to be very, very scary when we can no longer support ourselves. So the message is clear. Civilization has lost its connection with nature from which we came. That in losing this, we've separated ourselves from nature, but we've also separated ourselves from each other. And I say that because when biomedicine recognizes that consciousness and spirit are not relevant, they're missing the whole point of quantum physics, because quantum physics, energy is what's relevant. The invisible forces shape the material world. An Einstein quote, which when I give lectures, I say, if you're going to write something down, write this one. And here's the quote. The field, and the energy that we're in is called the field. Like even we're in a room right now, but guess what? Radio broadcast, television broadcast, mobile cell phone broadcast, solar energy. We're in an energy matrix right here, okay? So the field is the energy. The quote, the field is the sole governing agency of matter. It's the energy that shapes matter. And we've ignored the energy. We've ignored what is consciousness. We've ignored what is spirituality. These are energies. Well, conventional world built on Newtonian physics said, don't worry about them. It's like, big mistake, because the most valid of all the sciences on the planet today, the most valid is quantum physics. Now, there's a level of quantum physics that's all equations and mathematics and stuff, and it's like, it could blow your mind. But there's a simple basic understanding to it, that everything is made out of energy. Matter is a strange form of energy. Energy is connected. Everything is connected. The idea that there's a separation is an illusion. There is no separation. Einstein's quote is, reality is merely an illusion, albeit a persistent one. And this is the point. We don't know, as a group, the most valid science on the planet, quantum physics. And your thoughts are energy. And your thoughts shape matter. Your thoughts are creating the world that you live in, your perception. These things are left out of the equation. It's like, wow. I go, it's fundamental to the whole universe, the mechanisms of the entire universe. And I said, well, yeah, we all have thoughts, and all of us have some really wonderful thoughts, what we would love to have. I go, it comes from the mind. And right away it said, the mind. And that is where the illusion begins. The mind sounds like there is one mind. And I go, no, we each have two minds. We have what's called the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. They're different functions, but they're interdependent. They work with each other. I go, what's the difference? Well, The latest evolution is called the conscious mind, right behind your forehead, okay? I go, what's the character? It's creative. It's the one that has wishes and desires. If I say, hey, Mark, tell me what you want, the answers of what I want would be a creative vision generated by the conscious mind. I go, great. And I said, what about the other mind? I said, well, 90% of the brain is actually called the subconscious. And I go, what about that? I said, its function is different. It's the habit mind versus a creative mind. Now, the habit mind downloads programs, okay? And the result of that is that we are living our programs. Well, I'll give you an unfortunate statistic, and that is over 60% of the programs that we download are disempowering, self-sabotaging, and limiting beliefs. And they go, well, fine, I'll just use my conscious mind, the one with the wishes and desires. And I go, great idea, problem. I said, what's the problem? The conscious mind can do two separate things. I go, what is it? One, you could look at your eyes, pretend your body is a vehicle and your eyes are the windshield. And you're looking out the windshield. With a conscious mind, you can drive your vehicle to wishes and desires. I want this, I want that, I want blah, blah, blah. I go, that's what the conscious mind, creative. But the conscious mind can think, and that's where the problem comes from. I go, what do you mean? Well, thinking is not looking out. Thinking is looking in. A thought is on the inside. So if I ask you, tell me what you're doing 2 days from now, even if it's not written in front of you, you'll take a moment and you go, yeah, in 2 days I will do this. I said, where'd you get that information? Inside. I go, okay, now here's where the problem comes from. The conscious mind can be the driver of the vehicle if it's looking out the windshield, but the moment it's thinking, it's not looking out the windshield anymore. And the moment it's thinking, what if you are driving a car? I say, well, the moment you're thinking, then you're not paying attention to the road. I go, well, this is a dangerous thing. I go, no, let go. I go, why? Driving is a program. It's downloaded. You don't have to pay attention. The subconscious knows how to drive, and the subconscious, 1,000,000 times more powerful an information processor, drives better than you do. So basically, it says this: the subconscious mind is autopilot. Programs. You learned how to walk. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2. You learned, meaning it became a habit. Once you learned how to walk, did you ever have to relearn how to walk? I go, no, you could be 100 years old and still walking. I say, that's a program from when you were 2. I say, so when we learn something and repeat it, it becomes a program, which is a benefit. Why? Well, imagine if you didn't know how to walk when you woke up every morning. Then every day you spend the whole day trying to walk, and then the next morning you wake up and you have to spend the whole day trying to walk because there was no memory. So the subconscious, cool, gives us a program and a memory, and you can just push the button and walk without thinking about it. I go, that's great. Now, there's only one problem. What if the program is not supporting you? What if it's a negative program? What if it's a limiting program or a program that interferes with your life? I go, well, then you have a problem. Why? Because now that program is stored in the subconscious. I'll give a personal example. My mother and father had a very dysfunctional relationship. In the first 7 years, a child downloads by observing their parents, their family, their community, observing the behavior and downloading behavior. That's how we got the program. Sidebar. The brain is a computer. It has every function like a laptop computer. I go, and here's the point. In the old days, we'd buy a computer, bring it home, push start, boots up, and I say, ready to go, let's use it. You go, no, I can't use it. I said, you got a brand new computer. He said, no, first I have to put programs in, then I can access the computer. And I go, exactly the same for the human brain. It boots up 3 months before birth. And for 7 years, the brain is operating not at the level of consciousness, but at a lower vibration called theta. Theta brain activity is related to imagination. This is how children under 7 mix the real world and the imaginary world seamlessly. You know, there's the, I always mention the tea party. You pour nothing into the cup, you drink nothing, and you exclaim how that was the best tea you ever had. And the other conventional one is, a kid thinks a broom is a horse, and they're riding on the broom. In their mind, at that moment, it is not a broom. In their theta brain, it's actually a horse. And this is why there's a problem. The mother says, give me the broom, and the child looks at her like, not sure what she's talking about, because in that child's mind, in theta, imagination, it's a horse, okay? So we download these programs. And then I say, and when you're paying attention to the world, you don't use the program. But the moment you're thinking, you're not paying attention to the world, because thinking you're going inside. And when you're inside, you're not looking out. So I go, well, what if you're driving the car and all of a sudden you're thinking, when I get to the store, I'm going to buy blah, blah, blah. I go, at that moment, you're not driving the car. Why? The mind is thinking. I say, yeah, but the car is still going. I go, that's what I said, don't worry. Driving is a program like walking. You don't have to think about it. It does it automatically. So, how much time do we do thinking? And this is where the problem comes from. 95% of the day is the average time a person is thinking. I said, well, what does that mean? Well, I said, mathematically, that means 5% of the day you are moving toward wishes and desires, conscious mind function. 95% of the day you're playing the program. I go, yeah, and where do the programs come from? Mostly from other people, not you. So go back to my story. My father had a dysfunctional relationship to my mother. First 7 years, I'm downloading my father's behavior. I download very dysfunctional relationship behavior. It was over 40 years old before I got into a real relationship, because up to that point, I started a relationship, but once my programming kicked in, I would lose a relationship because it was dysfunctional. And I said, why? Because I was playing the program. And you said, well, you should have seen it was dysfunctional. I go, this goes back to the problem. If I'm looking inside, I'm not paying attention to what's going on outside. So I don't observe my subconscious programs. Even if they're sabotaging me, I don't see them because I'm not paying attention to what's going on. The problem is, everybody I interact with sees my program. I'm the only one that doesn't see it. And then when the people around me start messing around with my life and I become all of a sudden the victim, oh my God, that person did this and that one did that, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out, did they do that just randomly? No, they did that because your behavior encouraged them to do that. Good behavior encourages good behavior to come back. Dysfunctional behavior, dysfunctional life is present. And so the issue is, we don't see our subconscious programs. I've given a story for 40 years. You have a friend, you know your friend's behavior very well, and you happen to know your friend's parent. One day you see your friend has the exact same behavior as the parent. So you volunteer, you go, hey Bill, you're just like your dad. And I say, back away from Bill. Why? I know what Bill's going to say. You know what Bill said. And I said, what was it? Bill would say, how can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And yet everybody else can see that Bill behaves exactly like his dad. The only one who can't see it is Bill. And then the summary of that story is, we are all Bill. We're all doing this 95% of the day. And if we don't see our behavior, we only see the consequence of that behavior, which leads us to believe we must be victim because we didn't call for this in our conscious wishes and desires. But since we never observed the auto program playing from the subconscious, then we didn't see we were generating all these problems. Now, it takes me back to the movie The Matrix. Yeah, we all got programmed, and 60% of the programs are negative and disempowering. But I love it because in the movie you take a red pill and you get out of the program. And I go, wow, what would happen if you get out of the program? I said, almost everybody, if they're over teenage years, has taken the red pill. I go, when? What? What happened? Falling in love. Why? Science has recognized when we fall in love, we stop thinking. We stay present. We stay what is called mindful. Of course, if everything you want is in front of your face, why would you go in your head and disappear? You want to be here. So when we fall in love, we stop thinking. And I go, then what? I said, well, then the subconscious programs are not playing. I said, well, what's playing? The conscious program. What's that? Wishes and desires. So what do you think the honeymoon was? A manifestation of the wishes and desires. And what is it? Tantamount to heaven on earth. I go, just from stopping the program, I go, that's exactly what it was about. And so we have to own something. We have been programmed to feel that we are victims of the world, that, we have to struggle, we have to compete, we have to fight, and do all that. I say, that's a program. And if you engage in that program, then you're going to be a participant in that struggle, a participant in that fight. And we're living that way because the culture has introduced that into our consciousness through education and through, unfortunately, Darwinian theory, from where that belief comes from. And so we bought into life as a struggle. I go, a garden, by definition, is not a battleground. By definition, a garden is the height of community. Everything in the garden is supporting the garden. And I go, we have come from a garden, we have turned it into a battleground, in the process destroying the garden while simultaneously destroying civilization. This is a wake-up call. This is the time to recognize, wait, we're on the wrong track. We're not sustainable. Can't do this anymore. So it's not just because I'd like to make a choice. We're being forced by behavior into making a change. The chaos is a part of the change that I mentioned. It's falling apart. We have to come in to identify who we are. And the most important thing I learned from the cells, and that's where I got all my insights from, the cells, is a very important consequence of this fact. I said, what is it? I cannot put my organs into your body because your immune system will see the transplant, say, not self, and get rid of it. You can't put your cells and your organs into somebody else's body because their immune system will say, not self, and destroy it. Well, as a cell biologist and an immunologist, I started saying, what's self? Obviously, the immune system can identify what self is. And I say, but the immune system sees physical things like viruses, bacteria, parasites. And so what does it look like if I put my organ into your body and your immune system says not self? What is the immune system seeing that determines self from not self? Well, it turns out on the surface of our cells, the skin of our cells, there are protein antennas called receptors. We're like a cell. Our receptors are built into our skin. Eyes, ears, nose, taste, touch, pain, pressure. These are built into our skin. Well, the cells have their receptors built into the skin, but a much simpler version. They're protein antennas that resonate with environmental signals. Okay, so what's unique? And here's what it is. There's a set of antennas, receptors on your cells, the cells with the nucleus, that no one else in the world has the same set of receptors. No two people in the entire world share the same set of receptors. I love the name. It was misnamed, but it's actually the appropriate name. They're called stealth receptors. What does it mean? The receptors receive an environmental signal. And I say, so what? I say, no two people are receiving a very special environmental signal that nobody else is receiving. It comes through your self-receptors. Okay, so what does it mean? They're your identity. I said, what do you mean? I go, what makes you different from anybody else? The antennas. If I took these antennas off your cells, they'd be the same as everybody's cells. But the antennas make us different. I go, so what are the antennas doing? Downloading a signal. I said, what is the signal? Self-receptor. We're downloading self, who we are. I'm downloading a different signal than anybody else in the world. And when you put my cells into your body, these receptors are different than the receptors on your cells. So the immune system goes, oh, that can't be us. They got different receptors. Well, what's the point? The receptors are identity. Our identity is not built into the cell. Our identity is received by the cells. I go, from where? From the field. So an analogy, which I give in my lectures because it's exactly like it, the body is a television set. And the broadcast of self is coming in through the antennas, and we're playing the show. So you're looking at me, my body, I say, that's the Bruce television. The Bruce broadcast is the broadcast picked up by my antennas. And then comes like the parts that hit me instantaneously. So wait a minute. If I die, well, it's like a television. I say, if the television isn't working, it's broken. We say it's dead. I go, yeah, it's not working. Then I ask this question. The television just broke. Did the broadcast die with it? And I go, no, the broadcast's not part of the television. It's downloaded. I'm sorry, wait a minute. I realized at that instant, I said, what? I can't die. My body can die, but my identity is always here. And if an embryo shows up in the future with the same set of self-receptors, I'm back, but in a different television. Does it make a difference if it's male or female, the television? I go, no, that's the television, it's not the broadcast. Does it make a difference if it's white, brown, black, red, yellow? I say, no, that's the television, it's not the broadcast. What we have to learn is all humans come from the same source. We all come from the same broadcast band, so to speak. Each of us is a station on that band. And I go, why is that relevant? Because we're all the same. We all come from the same field. The televisions look different. And then we base the whole world on the nature of the television set, ignoring the fact that that's just playing the program. We're the broadcast. That's what we need to focus on. And that you can't die. And this becomes very relevant. It's very interesting because in transplantation, you can keep a transplant because they have to shut off your immune system. If I put a heart into your body, I can't have your immune system working because it will reject the heart. So when you transplant, you shut down the immune system. And I'll come back to this, I hope, but how do you shut down the immune system? Ready? Give the patient stress hormones before you do the operation. Stress hormones shut down the immune system.
Wow.
Like, maybe you can see where that's going to go. and the point is about the world of stress that we live in, shutting down the immune system. That's how you can put a transplant and keep it into another body as long as the immune system's not working. But the transplant still has the original person's self-receptors. Now, it turns out the heart, which is the major transplant, when you take somebody else's heart, you're also downloading their spirituality, their broadcast. The spirit and broadcast are the same thing. Matter of fact, quantum physics acknowledges spirit as an energy broadcast. That's a field. So I say, so why is this important? It's just very interesting to know that when people download a heart into their body, they also download some of the identity of the person who donated that heart. And it affects their behavior. They start expressing behavior not associated with them, but associated with the person whose heart that came from, which also indicates a very important fact. Why? The broadcast is still there. The heart's still downloading it. One other experiment, and this is a beautiful one. It was a colleague of mine, Cleve Baxter, who wrote The Secret Life of Plants. He created, for the government, technology-wise, lie detectors, galvanometers that read energy broadcasts, okay? Well, here's what he did. He was working with a scientist and astronaut, Brian O'Leary, and he put some of Brian O'Leary's cells into a test tube, moved the test tube 350 miles away from Brian O'Leary, put a recording device to record the vibrational energy of the cells. It then has a split-screen television. On half, live Brian, and live the energy broadcast of Brian's cells 350 miles away. Fact. The very, very instant Brian would have an emotional response, instantaneously the cells 350 miles away activated their electrical activity. Well, now the question is, how are they connected? 350 miles. And the point was this. The cells are downloading the same field as the cells in Brian's body. So when Brian affects the field, anything that's downloading that field is going to be affected. And so 350 miles away just shows the field is not localized, the field is spread everywhere. And so what connects us? An energy field. And what do we call it? Field, energy field. Physicists acknowledge the field that we each have through our own unique antennas is a unique field, spirit. And that spirit exists. And that we all come from the same source. And that we are all part of, and I use this in the lecture, I say if you took all of the spirits and looked at all the collective energy field, you could call it God, all that is. And that each of us is a piece of that God. And I go, yeah, because guess what the character is? We're creators. We're creating. I'm not creating the whole world. I'm creating my experience in this world. But if you get enough people in the world to create the same thing, then we manifest reality. Culture is a manifestation of a reality because enough people are responding to the same field and the same belief. And so the simple reality is this. We have to learn something. Number one, we can't die because we're not in here. Number two, that every other human is coming from the same source that we come from. Their television sets may differ, but their source is the same. I find myself being a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. Personally, I look at religion as the business of spirit, but Jesus was a philosopher. He had brilliant things to say. The church says you have to believe in Jesus. I say, no, you got it wrong. You have to believe in what Jesus said. That's where the problem comes from. And the one thing that I would bring up right now is the last thing he said, apparently, while on the cross. He said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. I go, oh, my God. This is the lesson we're supposed to understand. Why? Someone is being evil to you. Can I forgive them? Well, I can forgive their spirit because I know the evil they do is a program. I separate that. And I know that they don't know they're playing the program. So they know not what they do. Should I hate them? I go, as a spirit, no, I can't hate them. But it doesn't mean I have to hang around. If they're going to play that program, I don't want to be there. But I don't have to hate them. Imagine if hate disappeared from the world. It would be the most amazing thing right now because that's the separation. Fear, hate, these are the separation elements. And I'll take another tact. You know, I'm supposed to be answering questions, but I'm just rattling on, so I hope it's okay.
No, I feel like I should just start applauding right now because that was amazing. I mean, I had all these questions here, and I think you literally just answered all of them.
I would like to answer one more because
yes,
I find this one very critical because the world is facing a healthcare crisis. The healthcare, no matter how much money we've given to the industry, to the pharmaceutical, to the medical, health is worse than it's ever been.
I actually do have some statistics here.
Oh, good.
On
Give
this
us
exact
a
topic.
statistic.
Yeah. To your point, 6 out of 10 young adults in America have a chronic illness now. 9 out of 10 older adults, 65 and over, have a chronic illness. These numbers have significantly gotten worse in the last few years. Mental health is plummeting. 24% of adults have been diagnosed with a mental illness. The numbers have increased dramatically since the invention of social media. The U.S. spends $5 trillion a year on health expenses. This number is expected to double by the end of this decade. We have an opioid crisis, over 100,000 deaths per year in America. Life expectancy is actually going down over the last 6 years. Before
Yes.
COVID started, life expectancy has been going down. 700,000 suicides a year globally. I have a lot of statistics here, but I just kind of wanted to paint this picture that what is going on? Like,
That's the most important question. Are we just frail individuals and our genetics is pushing us over the edge? And the answer is, first of all, number one, less than 1% of illness, less than 1% is even connected to genetics. 90% or more of illness is totally lifestyle and programming. And the issue is, then where's the health coming from? Well, I can give it to you very simple. A long time ago in the evolution, we created a behavior to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. And that's my protection response, run. I said, what organs do I need to run away and save myself from a tiger? I go, arms and legs. Those are the muscles that are going to carry you away. So I said, well, so I need to support my arms and legs. I go, well, how do you support them? I said, the blood carries energy. So when you're going to run, I want my blood focused in my arms and my legs because that's what I'm going to use to escape. I go, in the textbook, I like it because it says, when stress hormones are introduced into the system, the blood is preferentially sent to the arms and legs. I go, where was the blood before it was in the arms and legs? In the gut. I say, yeah, but what's the function of the gut? Everything about maintenance of the body, fixing, repairing, cleaning, everything is take care of the body. So the energy of the body is focused in the gut to take care of us. At the moment a saber-toothed tiger is chasing us, all of a sudden it's not necessary to be taking care of the body so much, it's necessary to run. So here's three things. The first thing stress hormones do is cause the blood vessels in the gut to squeeze shut. I say, why? Because that pushes the blood to the arms and legs where I need it for escape. So I go, yeah, and you feel it. It's called being queasy or butterflies in the stomach. You can feel what's going on. That queasiness is the blood vessels squeezing shut. So number one, you shut down the maintenance of the body when you're in fear. Number two, the immune system uses a tremendous amount of energy. I go, yeah, if you've ever been sick, you may not even have the energy to get out of the bed. I say, so what if you're sick and the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you? You go, well, how do you want to split the energy? And the answer comes down logically. The hell with the immune system. If the tiger catches me, whatever my sickness is won't be bothering me anymore. So, listen, I mentioned earlier, the immune system is shut down with stress hormones. So we lose our internal protection. And a simple fact right now, everybody is infected with almost every organism known to humans. But if your immune system is working, you don't have any problem with it. But the moment fear comes in, the stress hormones shut off the immune system. The third consequence of stress hormones, which adds to this, I call it adding insult to injury, because the first two are injuring you. The insult is this. When fleeing a saber-toothed tiger, thinking is too slow a process. Thinking, it takes more time to consciously think than the subconscious, which is immediate reaction reflexes. So what happens is when the stress hormones are released into the body, they cause the blood vessels in the forebrain to close just like the blood vessels in the gut. So the forebrain is the thinking brain. So when the blood vessels close, it pushes the blood to the hindbrain, which is reaction. We become less intelligent when we're in fear because consciousness is shut off. Now I want to tell you, the organizations in this planet that know that have made themselves very successful by playing on fear. Number one, religion. How do they get off the ground? The fear of death. The fear of death has been a human thing because only humans know they're going to die. No other organism has any idea about death. But since we know we're going to die, then the fear of death becomes part of our life, okay? And then I said, well, then we've been programmed that, you could go to hell. And all of a sudden the pictures like Dante's Inferno of fire and brimstone and creatures and, scary, scary stuff has been created, the hell fear. Well, once you're afraid of hell, then, and you're living in this fear, and you're stressed out, and you're not thinking, and you're a victim, how can I save myself? And then religion comes in and says, we will save you. And for 10% of your salary, which is called tithing, they will give you stories about how they can have God help you. Well, the idea is each of us is a piece of God. We don't need somebody between us and God. We're all directly connected to God. And the fact is that's the way it happened. A more modern version is COVID. Be afraid. Everybody's going to die. COVID's going to kill us. Everybody stopped thinking. Everybody got afraid. Everybody's immune system shut down, which did what? Made COVID worse because the stress has shut off the immune system. And then what? Fear. Then what? Take the vaccine. Why? That will save you. I go, hey, 98% of the population of Israel had that vaccine. And when COVID came, it ran through that place and everybody got sick. I go, give me the value of the vaccine. It was like, no, there was no value to the vaccine. But we bought it. It was the same fear. We learned not to talk to each other. We learned to wear a mask and separate. We put masks on without recognizing. Children in their learning phase read faces of their parents to know if they're in a good place or a bad place. I mean, a child on a swing set falls off the swing, lands on the ground, face in the dirt. The first thing it does is look at the parent. If the mother's going, the child will start screaming. But if the mother goes, okay, just get up and go, then the child gets up and go. What was the point? A child is designed to understand where it sits by looking at the face of the mother and father. When faces got covered up, it threw a monkey wrench in the fundamental learning of children. Very, very severe social issues come from this kind of stuff. Besides the fact that the vaccine didn't work, and besides the statistics at this point reveal that more people died from the vaccine than from the COVID. Okay, I said, well, COVID wasn't that harmful. Then you go, come on, look at all the people who got sick in the hospital, blah, blah, blah. I go, let me give us a little short story about it. Everybody radiates energy because everything is quantum physics is energy. When you're healthy, you have a strong energy. When you're weak, you have a weak energy. Let's say a lion sees a pack of gazelles running, and the lion's hungry. Is he going to pick any gazelle? Is he going to be like a human and pick the one with the biggest antlers? It's like, no. The lion's hungry. He wants to catch the one he's going to catch. How does he know which one? The weakest one. So the lion scans each of the gazelles, targets the weakest one and chases it. Why? Because that's the one he's going to catch. Wolves do this when herds of animals, same thing. They're actually doing nature a service because they're removing the weak elements from the herd. COVID was the same thing. Who got the COVID? When they did all-around testing, 40% of the people that tested positive didn't even know they had COVID. Why? They were healthy. Well, who are the ones that end up in the hospital? They were already compromised. Many of them super obese. Many of them diabetes type 2. Many of them already had cardiovascular issues. I go, so what? COVID was the wolf. It affected the weak people. It did not affect the strong people. Did medicine ever say, why don't we get stronger? No, it ignored the whole thing and said, why don't you just take the vaccine? Because the vaccine didn't work. But if you got healthy, you wouldn't have had the problem. But that wasn't being pushed because we're victims. And that was what they were pushing. We were victims of COVID. And COVID was a bad flu. And healthy people, when they had a bad flu. Sick people, when they had it, were in the hospital. Okay? And then the whole story was, it was all propaganda, BS, belief system. And
Bruce,
yes.
Just a question about the vaccine.
Please.
What do you think that mRNA vaccine did to people?
First of all, it infected all of our cells. Why? Most vaccines, when you inject it, stay right where they injected it. Okay, they put it into a solution that sort of keeps it affecting right there. The COVID vaccine put spikes. The program to make a spike, RNA, genetic code, and put that into the vaccine. When injected, the vaccine spread through the body. So any cell that picked up the RNA was going to then make the spike. Well, that's what the immune system sees. So phase one, you put the vaccine in, you infect a bunch of cells, they put the spike on their membrane, the immune system looks at it, learns that that's an infected cell, kills the cell, but it learns the spike. I say, so what? I say, well, the problem is this. Take a booster. I go, what happens if you take a booster? Well, you're injecting again throughout the body, all this stuff. I go, but what? You already got the immune system that will work on it. Now it's killing cells all over the body because anytime a cell took it in. And because it was an RNA vaccine, it's genetic engineering so that many of the cells picked up the RNA and converted it into DNA so that their nucleus makes these spikes. Talk about long term. I go, yeah, you've infected these cells with the message to make the spike. It's in your DNA in many of the cases. I go, what does that mean? It's like, it's not coming out of the DNA. It's long term at that point. And the issue about it is what? It's called genetic engineering. It was illegal to use, according to the World Health Organization, to make a vaccine with nucleic acids, RNA and DNA in it. And yet, hey, it was faster, it was cheaper, it was an easier way to make the vaccine. The pharmaceutical companies, based on making a profit, said, man, this is faster and easier than the old-fashioned way. Let's do it. Yeah, but it's illegal. They changed the definition. They pulled RNA out of the definition so they could sell the vaccine. It was like, it was always genetic engineering. And the fact is what? One thought was that when the spikes were made by a cell and put on the surface of the cell so the immune system can see it, that they stayed on the surface of the cell. And it turns out, no. They break off the surface of the cell. So our cell makes the toxic part, the spike, and releases it. It goes through the rest of the system. So we're essentially attacking ourselves with a virus. Without the whole virus, we didn't need that because the problem came from the spike. And the spike attaches to all these cells. We were making it worse as it went along. And the idea was why? It was cheaper. That was the problem. It was cheaper to make the vaccine at the cost of what? A pandemic. It actually, people with the vaccine had more problems than those people without the vaccine. But then came the bigger problem. The psychology of, I received the vaccine, you didn't do the vaccine, you're the troublemaker. And I go, wait, if you received the vaccine, why are you concerned about me? If you got the vaccine, you should be okay and don't care about me. So don't care about me if I don't want the vaccine. But it separated people. I live in a small community when I'm in New Zealand. as small as that community was, it got split in half, pro-anti-vaccine. And the point about it was, this is manipulation. It was totally anti-science because they broke the rule about making genetic vaccines. And the cost of it was the sickness and illness. And then everybody got the media version of people dying. So many people are dying. We have to have all these semi-tractor trailers in New York to hold the bodies of all the... What a bunch of BS, belief system. And I go, why? Because it wasn't true. And all the hype of all the people dying wasn't true. I said, what do you mean? Well, let's add a little financial factor. I go, what is it? The government gave, I think, approximately $4,000 to the hospital for every patient they treated for COVID. And if they put a tube in their mouth, to swallow, they got $10,000. Guess what? The guy comes in with a car accident. Oh, I think he's got COVID. And the point about it, I saw the printout from the government said, if the test proves they got COVID, then you write they have COVID. And then it goes on, the next sentence says, and if you think they have COVID, write COVID. It's like, oh my God, it was a windfall of money to all the hospitals. Why? Everybody came in. Car accident, fall down, break a leg. No, you got COVID, you got COVID. The statistics, everybody's getting COVID. The money, it was all money, it was all pharmaceutical, it was all BS. There was a report called a Government Oversight Committee, which reviews the results of projects like the COVID thing. Number one, all of the scientists that went before Congress lied. It's right there in the report. They all lied about this. Number two, wearing masks, 100% ineffective. Number three, keeping 6 feet apart, 100% ineffective. Taking kids out of school, a disaster on development and social organization. And these are the consequences of this so-called COVID. They're still pushing the vaccine. And the fact is, no, what happens, something like comes along, the vaccine mutates, and then it becomes not as destructive, so the more current versions of the COVID are less toxic than the original versions. That's the way it always occurs in the history of civilization and the development of the immune system. It always does that. But we bought a story. We bought a whole propaganda about the fear. What does fear do? Takes away the power of consciousness from the public. Just tell me what I need to do. Not talk to my neighbor? Okay. Don't go and meet with people? Okay. It's like you see somebody driving the car alone wearing a mask. Why?
Right.
There's nobody in the car to affect you. What are you wearing a mask for? But
right.
The whole fear, and that's how you manipulate people. Fear has always been the manipulation.
Right. I'm very curious to know how the echo of these the people that got the vaccine, how is this going to ripple out? Like, what health consequences are they going to experience down the line, do you think? We're seeing like myocarditis.
My God, yeah. Look, first of all, how about the fact that young boys are dying of heart attacks? Young boys never died of heart attacks. But all of a sudden we started seeing kids on the playing field, on the sports field, young guys, young kids dying of a heart attack. Never happened. Why? The COVID vaccine attacked the heart, number one. The COVID vaccine attacks the ovaries. There's a reproductive issue that results from this. It's passing on as well. There are consequences of this that are long-term. That's what they call it, or long-acting COVID or whatever. They generated that. Was it an accident from eating some stupid dead animal in a Chinese market? No, we know it came from the lab that was making this vaccine, not the vaccine, making the COVID. Hello? But keep them in fear. They'll take that vaccine. They'll take the booster shot. It's like, whew. And I say, what's it doing? Eliminating portions of the population, specifically poor people. I go, eliminating poor people, that's bad. I go, not according, and let me emphasize this, to the leadership who brought, and I put this in quotes, science. What do you mean? Science has revealed through a false, the whole thing was false, but we bought it from a guy, a philosopher called Malthus, Thomas Malthus. He came up with a theory that plants and animals grow at different rates. Plants grow arithmetically. I go, what does that mean? Well, the farmer got a bushel of wheat this year, and if he works hard, he'll get 2 bushels of wheat next year. And if he does extra weeding and puts some fertilizer, he'll get 3 bushels, and then he'll get 4 bushels. So it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But animals, he said, double their population, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And I go, well, what's the point? Put it on a graph. And what's the graph show you? There are many more animals than there is food. And this is what led to the belief of survival of the fittest, which was then put into Darwinian theory. It was false. It was 100% false. Animal populations stabilize. They don't keep doubling all the time. So it was false science, but built into the theory, and then we bought the theory. And so the point very seriously is the whole mission of survival of the fittest in competitions based on something that's not true. Can we live with the population we have? According to the leadership that follows that old, outdated, wrong science, no, we must get rid of people. How do you get rid of people? Famine, okay? Disease. This is actually, Malthus came up with a word called slum. And what was that? He said, build the housing for poor people in the swampy area, because in the swampy area there's more disease, and therefore we can eliminate the poor people from breeding too fast by having them have disease. Well, that was one. The Germans came up and said war is a way of eliminating the population. And they say, oh, our finest and bravest young men. I go, that's a bunch of BS. Why? Who are the soldiers? The people that can't get a job. Mainly black people as well. I go, you put them in there, and if they get lost, it's like, well, 15,000 troops died during this thing. It's like, well, it's like, just 15,000 people. I go, what? And we write it off. Why? Because in their belief system, too many people. And COVID also had a selection process against the poor people, who were the less healthy people. And that was part of the thing. Eliminate the population, bring it down. And all of a sudden I go, we could have 8 billion people not even bother the planet. 10 billion people won't bother the planet, but not the way we are living today, because the resources won't provide for it. And so we're living in a world that they're using a fake science to say it justifies eliminating the poor people. I love it because Darwin's theory says survival of the fittest. I go, what is fittest? What does that mean? The most fit. I go, wait, you ready? Definition of fit, just fit, capable of surviving. I said, well then why survival of the fittest? What about those that were just fit? Or how about those that were a little bit more, they were fitter, but they weren't the fittest? And the answer is survival of the fittest. I go, where the hell did that come from? And the answer was, Darwin created his theory in Victorian England that had an upper class and a lower class. He built the philosophy of that into the equation that said evolution is based on the upper class, not the rest. So survival of the fittest means keep the upper class, get rid of the rest. And we have a government that buys that as science when it's totally false and gives it to us back. Oh, this is science. It's like, no, it's not. That's false science, pseudoscience.
Wow, it's really refreshing to hear you say this. I look up to you as like a medical professor, a biologist, somebody who taught at Stanford, but it's really nice to hear you saying things that go against the mainstream.
Look, I was a tenured professor in a medical school. That means a job for life. I could have stayed there my whole life, got a job. But my research on stem cells revealed that the environment controlled the genes, and yet the curriculum in the medical school is that genes control life. I said, what is the meaning of teaching that? I said, oh my God, we're turning people into victims. I go, what do you mean? Well, as far as you know, did you pick the genes you came with? No. You don't like the characteristics. Can you change the genes? No. And then tell them genes turn on and off by themselves. And what have you programmed? I'm a victim of my heredity. And therefore, I am weak. I am a victim. I need you to fix me. And then steps in the pharmaceutical company and says, let me fix you. And the reality was, my research said that was wrong. And therefore, I looked and I said, I cannot go back in a classroom and teach people that they're victims when they're not victims. Why? It's the environment. You can control the environment. You control that. That means you have the power of controlling your genes. The genes don't control you. And yet we're teaching people that genes control their lives and that they themselves can't affect the genes, and therefore we're victims and have to get the help from outside. And I said, BS! I'm not going there. And I walked out, which was a very interesting moment because I felt so proud of myself to hand my resignation into the chairman and say, I'm leaving, I can't do this anymore, blah, blah, blah. I felt really great. I walked out of his office, maybe got 15 feet away from his office, and then said, oh my God, you idiot, you have no job. You just threw away a lifetime job and now you're out here with nothing. You have nothing. It was like, too late to go back. And yet it was the best thing that ever happened in my life, because I have a far better life now than I ever would have had if I stayed in the medical school.
Well, that's great. I'm super grateful that you stepped away that day because now we got all your books and your teachings. Just sticking with the vaccine thing for a bit.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about all these other vaccines that children get and that are thrust upon them.
I need to talk about vaccines for a second in this regard. One of the first things that humans have been making a big mistake is that a child's immune system isn't functioning fully until after 2 or 3 years of age, 2 to 3. I said, well, how's the child protecting itself in the earlier part? And I go, mother's milk. Mother's milk is loaded with antibodies that she makes and are passively given to the child via the milk. And this sustains the immune system of a child. Well, give them formula. That's the worst thing I could ever imagine giving a child. I said, why? Well, number one, mother's milk was designed for human babies. I go, why? It has the richest, most powerful source of fats, lipids, which are necessary to build the body. You're not going to find these lipids in formula. And why is it important? The brain grows to about 2/3 of its size in the first few years of a child's life. The brain is white when you see it. I go, why is it white? Because it's made out of lipids. And if you short the lipids, you are metabolically shortening the ability of a child's brain to grow. If you keep them from having mother's milk, you're not giving them antibodies which don't come in formula at all. So formula is convenient. Yeah, the mom doesn't have to bother doing this. The baby can have this at the expense of the development and health of the baby. Big mistake. So they said, let's give the kid vaccine. Big mistake number 2. And here it is. We have something in our throat called tonsils. In the conventional medical curriculum, which I was involved with teaching, tonsils are reported as being protection mechanism. That if you put toxic things or viruses or bacteria into your mouth, the saliva, will carry it down past the tonsils, and the tonsils will take out the bad things and protect you, okay? So they're looked at as physical protection, remove bad stuff. It turns out that is not what the tonsil does. It's completely wrong. The tonsils are a learning system. They sample everything you put into your mouth to see what's in it. And then the tonsils are the place where education of the immune system occurs. So when you put stuff in your mouth, the immune system learns from what was in there to make antibodies against the things necessary. And so I say, so why is this a problem? Because nature has a built-in vaccination system, the tonsils, which means you want to put it orally. And I go, this is why infants will put everything in their environment into their mouth. It's not an action or stupid behavior. It's an inherent mechanism to enhance the immune system to recognize the environment. Everything the child sticks in its mouth is coming from the environment. Everything that sticks in its mouth is going by the tonsils, and the tonsils are learning the environment. This is why the immune system around puberty gets smaller and smaller. Why? Because by then you should have sampled everything in your world. Okay, but now that we travel with planes and cars, we always encounter new environments. Okay, but the point about it is what? There was natural immunity mechanism, oral. If you take a needle and inject toxic stuff anywhere in the body, it's the wrong place. Why? The body has an intelligence. It says, if I'm going to put something inside, it's going to come through my face. And therefore, the tonsils are the first line of defense. So if you want to use you want to make antibodies, they should be natural antibodies orally given. But if you inject it out of sight, you're pushing on a system that hasn't even fully developed yet. The child's immune system is developed around 2. I say, so what if you're doing, you give the injection? I say, you're messing with the immune system. You're not being intelligent. The cell was intelligent. The body was intelligent. The mechanism intelligent. And that's where the hubris of humans, like, we're smarter than nature. Yeah? Well, with all our smartness, we're destroying the planet, we're destroying each other, and we're destroying health. I think it's time to recognize the intelligence of the system. It's more intelligent. You think, oh, intelligence is that higher up you go the evolutionary tree. And as you go lower and lower, less and less intelligent. I say, and what about when you get to the cells? Oh, they're so small they can't be really intelligent. And then I go, cells created us. The cells made us. We didn't make the cells. The cells were intelligent to create this human body. So I don't think I would challenge the intelligence of cells in saying they're not intelligent. They're more intelligent than we are. They created this perfect mechanism. When we apply our so-called intelligence and alter nature, it's when we throw a monkey wrench into the game. Humans think they're so smart, and we've lost it.
Wow, thank you for that. That's incredibly informative. And I'm curious to know if there are any vaccines that you think have done some good or you would recommend.
Oral vaccines, they're beginning to have a few. They did some back in polio days. They created the oral polio vaccine. Vaccines work at an expense. It's a challenge to the immune system. It's not the most effective, efficient way to educate that immune system. It's actually pushing the immune system out of its normal pathway to try and take care of it. And it's problematic because it does cause problems in life. I remember there was something called the swine flu that was happening around 1976. I think Gerald Ford was the president. The fear, because swine flu was a disease in around 1916, 17, 18 that killed millions and millions of people around the world. And an interesting story is the government and the pharmaceutical companies funded a vaccine conference in Europe to deal with what are called pandemics. What happens if something goes global? What should we do? So it was an introductory conference, and at the end they came up with an introductory, what should we do? Well, the first thing they said, we should vaccinate everybody. That was the first conclusion. 10 days, maybe 10 days after the conference, there was the first report of swine flu in the United States. From where? The Army. 2 soldiers apparently had swine flu. One of them died. Well, one of them had a flu, and it was a march. They were marching, a forced march in the winter at night. The flu took the best of him. He died. They call it swine. And all of a sudden, everybody jumped into action. Swine flu? We must inject everybody. That's what the conclusion was. So they wanted to build up the injection. Well, the first thing was this. There was no money to do this. And secondly, there's no insurance, meaning if the company makes a vaccine, they weren't going to insure it because they weren't going to have enough time to test the vaccine. So the government had to change the Constitution, which says the U.S. is not an insurer. It doesn't insure. They got Congress and they said, look, if you don't back this and the swine flu comes and there's this big trauma, your name will be listed as the problem. So they all, arms bent behind them, said, okay, so we changed the Constitution. We put in insurance. Then the vaccine companies said, fine, we'll make the vaccine. We don't care. Unfortunately, boondoggles. In Europe, they were facing the same issue. And the British had, I think, 11 soldiers volunteer to be injected with the swine flu, apparently the virus. I think 2 of them had a serious fever. 2 or 3 of them had flu, and 2 or 3 of them had no effects at all. So the British government said, okay, we're out of the game. We're not going to play the game. But in the U.S., they were pushing this damn thing. Everybody's going to get vaccinated. Thank God the boondoggle. Why? By the time the vaccine was available, people looked around and goes, there's no swine flu. Nothing's happening here. The fear that they talked about, it's not happening. So older people said, I'm not going to get the vaccine. So who'd they give it to? The old people in nursing homes and the children in schools got the vaccine that wasn't necessary, but it was a money-making situation, just like COVID. How many billionaires came out of COVID with money-making process from it? It was business, it was corporation. It had nothing to do with us except business. And the swine flu never happened. And yet it was this big, be afraid, be fear, the swine flu is coming back and millions of people are going to die. Nope, nobody died. Maybe the guy didn't even have swine flu. The one that died, that they said was the example of swine flu death, one soldier. It's all propaganda. It's all business. And guess what? The government had to pay I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars because the vaccine causes something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a result of vaccines. So many people got the Guillain-Barré syndrome from the swine flu that the government paid out millions and millions of dollars insurance because the vaccine companies weren't going to insure it. And that's true to today. The companies are released from responsibility. It's like, huh? You make a product and you're not responsible for what this product does? Well, that's business. And we're there.
Yeah, very suspicious. I've noticed a lot of the propaganda around vaccines, they'll show you a graph of polio or measles or something, and they'll show that it's an all-time high in this year, and then the graph will go down, and they'll claim that the vaccine came in at that hour and made it go down, but really...
That was BS because that happens to every infective agent. First it builds up to a peak, and then it drops down. COVID did that. Because now COVID is like an everyday flu at this point. Yeah, when it first came out, it was a shock to the system, but as learning occurred, as the immune systems evolved, the effectiveness of COVID kept getting altered and altered to the point today that genetically it's not the same COVID that got here in the first place, and the immune systems have learned to deal with it. And then they say, well, the vaccine did it, and it's like, It was a natural curve. That would have happened whether you gave the vaccine or you didn't give the vaccine.
Okay, so advice to parents with newborn babies, maybe no injecting of vaccines,
No.
only oral.
Oral.
Okay.
Milk. Mother's milk. There is no substitute for mother's milk. It has the richest source of nutrients for an evolving human that no formula could ever come near to it. It has the antibodies, which are protecting the child passively while the immune system of the child is evolving. And so the idea is, well, it's convenient so mom can go to work. And it's like, mom shouldn't go to work. Mom is raising a child. Raising a child is one of the most important jobs on this planet. Like, what do you mean? Because if that child grows up, our civilization is based on that child. And the way we're ignoring the parenting, the way we're ignoring and writing it off. Oh no, give the child the formula. Let him go, let somebody else raise the child. It is the worst thing for human development possible. Child needs love, physical attention. It needs holding from the mother and father. Holding of safety and security. This builds up resistance to stress. There's a whole lot of research on that. I love it because a friend of mine, James Prescott, who died, was head of child health human development at the National Institute of Health. And there was research that started at the University of Wisconsin. And the research is love learned or is love innate? And so what they did is they got hundreds of baby monkeys, but they couldn't have the mother with them because that would ruin the experiment. So they isolated them. Every baby monkey had its own little cage. It could see all the other monkeys, hear the other monkeys, smell the other monkeys, but there was no touch, no physical touch. They were isolated in their cages. Then they had these wire frame babies, just a wire frame mother with eyes on it, and a bottle would be stuck in the wire frame, and the monkey would hold on to the wire frame, drink the milk, and then they would get off. Then they put in a second wire frame one, but the second wire frame one had cloth, soft cloth all wrapped around it. Then they found out the baby would drink the milk from the wire version, but as soon as they would finish, they would hold on to the one with the cloth. And they couldn't figure out what was going on, but what they found out was this. Most of the babies were autistic. They would do just like autistic humans. They would rock and hide in a corner. They avoided everything. If two monkeys got in the same cage, they would avoid each other the best they possibly could, but there would come a point that they would get into a fight and one would kill the other one. They were sociopath monkeys, all of them. They had to kill all the damn monkeys in the primate center. So they were trying to figure out what was going on. A second study comes in. This is a good one. Rats, when they have a litter, have maybe, let's say, 10 pups. Well, they were doing an assessment of growth factors, and they wanted to measure parameters of the growth of these rat pups. So they didn't want all 10 out of the litter. They would pick 5, and they'd mark them with a magic marker. These are the ones. And every day they would take them out, measure, weigh, whatever they did, assess, and then put them back in. At the end, when these rats were now mature, there were 2 different populations from the same litter. One population had bad learning and bad memory. Wouldn't do well in a swimming test where they put them in and they had to learn how to survive by swimming. When they put them into a big cage, one set of rats would just hide in the corner and just be afraid, hide in the corner. Had very high stress levels, and they died young. The other rats in the same litter, smart, intelligent, learn fast, were not afraid, put them in the big cage. They would play with all the things in the cage. They did well on all the tests. They weren't affected by stress. Which were the ones that were the frail ones? Which ones were the healthy ones? Ready? The ones that they took out were the healthy ones. The ones with the least ability to stress. And they go, why? Then they looked. When they returned the ones back to the litter that were taken out, the mother groomed them excessively, licked and held and loved them and held and licked them and took care of them special over the other ones that were in the cage all the time. So it comes out with an issue called somatosensory affection, okay? And a dysfunction is SAD, somatosensory dysfunction, okay? SAD, what was the affection, somatosensory affection dysfunction. What they found out was this, and this is so critical. This is unknown, and yet the most critical. Okay, what is it? There's the equivalent of a thermometer in the head that reads the level of stress hormones. And it's like a thermostat. You can set it at any different level. You can set it real low so when the stress hormones come in, they shut off. Or you can set it up real high so when the stress hormones come in, they get up so high and build up that it breaks into violence. Okay? And they were wondering, where's the setting on the stress hormone? And it turns out how much physical holding and loving the child gets, because it represents security. The more the held, the more the love, and that's somatosensory, holding the physical body, holding them, touching them, bringing them close to their skin. A lot of civilizations don't even let the kids on the ground for a year, okay? And what did they find out? That the loving attention that the child gets is setting the thermostat. If they're not getting loving attention, the thermostat is way high, so that as stress hormones come in, they don't shut off and they build up to a point of violence. But if they get a lot of attention, then the stress hormones are shut off almost as soon as they come up, so they're not afraid. They can live in the world without fear. And it turns out how much physical holding security the baby gets. And all of a sudden it turns out, oh my God, we are not providing that for our children. And the less holding they have, then the thermostat is set up close to the violent level. So my friend Jim Prescott from NIH put all this research together, studied cultures that were on the planet, looked at were they cultures that gave loving and holding to kids versus those that didn't. And it turns out 75% of the cultures that gave loving and holding to their children were nonviolent. But then they figured, what the hell was the other 25%? And they found out is they looked at two characters, holding the child, and number two, no prohibition on premarital sex. Okay? And so then they did the statistics. Those cultures that held their children and did not have taboos on the sex, 100% of those cultures were peaceful, nonviolent cultures. They said, what the hell was all this about? It all has to do with bonding. The first 75% was bonding in the family, bonding with the mother and the parent and being secure and safe in the family. The second bonding was learning to bond with another person to create another family. So you had the bond of mating bond. Who are you going to bond with? Well, premarital sex was against the rules, and therefore so many people got married without ever having any experience this way. Then 50% of marriages end in divorce. You know, it's like we weren't learning the ropes of bonding. The first level, bonding to family. The second level, bonding with a mate that will generate a family. And when you interfere with those things, that's where violence comes into play. And he wrote this, Prescott wrote this in an article, a science article, saying the government and the church are knowingly making a violent population. And the reason is simple, you ready? You can't make a soldier out of somebody who won't get stressed. You make a soldier out of someone who's ready to fight. Well, who's ready to fight? The people whose thermostats are set up so that you put them in a stress situation, they're going to fight right away. So all of a sudden, he wrote this, and they fired him the next day because
Really?
he wrote this, yeah. And it was true. The taboos against touch, the taboos against holding, all of this stuff, the taboos against premarital sex, it's not human evolution. It never was. Those were taboos put into human evolution. And that cultures that just followed the ancient history of bonding were all nonviolent cultures. And, look, Mark, you and I grew up as males. Let me, interesting fact. A lot of women look at us males and go, males are so insensitive. Oh, they're so insensitive. These men are insensitive. Men were born with the exact same sensitivity as women. But in growing up, men were desensitized. I remember growing up, they'd hit you in the shoulder and see if you flinched, see, yeah, you can hit me, I don't feel it. Yeah, that was the old guys being tough. We was tough, man. You can hit me, I don't feel it. Violence, I'm not feeling it. What were they doing? Desensitizing men. Because sensitive men cannot be soldiers. We were programming men to be different so that they could carry a gun and shoot somebody. Women, they didn't have that problem. They could be as sensitive as they want. And they were. It was the men that were programmed out of sensitivity by being, oh, you're a pussy. Oh, whatever. They had names for us. If you weren't a tough guy, They made men tough guys by taking away sensitivity, because that's how you make a soldier. And we're in that culture.
Well, I'm just thinking about this from an evolutionary point of view, and we do really want peaceful, nice people, but it seems like the way things are set up, the tribe with the most brutal warriors is going to take everything from the nice tribe. So having men that are strong or stoic, who suppress their emotions, maybe evolution selected for that because that led to...
Well, they always connect us and say, look, chimp behavior and human behavior. The alpha males and the chimp are the tough guys. And if they want to take a woman partner, they would kill the babies of that woman. Why? Because it wasn't from their genetics. Okay, this is all chimpanzee mentality at this point, right? They were very violent, except for one group of chimps called the bonobo. And the bonobo were male and female co-alpha. They both were in charge. And the culture of bonobos, the phrase that there was put to it, make love, not war. What was the point? When they get stressed, they had sex. Why? Because after they had sex, they were no longer stressed anymore, and the violence disappeared. So they were truly, if they all got stressed out, they'd all have sex, and then there was no violence to it. And so it says, well, wait, then there's two versions of chimps. The violent one, which we want to associate with human behavior, and the bonobos, which were more advanced because they had co-dominant male and female. It wasn't male. I can't remember the researcher's name, just dropped out of my head, from Stanford, studying, he's a medical doctor, and he studied a lot with emotions and stuff like that. I can't remember his name. You'll know his name if I find it. He worked for years studying a group of, what are the monkeys? They're not monkeys. They're monkey-like, but they're very violent population. Obviously, God, see, I dropped the name out here.
Apes, gorillas.
They're not apes. They look like monkeys, but they're more violent. The males are really, really violent in this. I'll think of a name.
Are they primates?
What's that?
Are they primates?
Yeah, they're chimps.
Okay.
A different version.
Yeah.
Okay. The name went
I
there.
can throw it up.
I'll
throw it
give
up
you
on
the
the screen. Yeah.
What was the point? He studied them like Jane Goodall stuff. knew their names for following them and see how they worked. And they had all the typical violence associated with them, with the killing of the young and the fighting with each other and the male dominant and the fighting and all that stuff. And then he went off to Stanford and did his medical stuff, and then at some point he went back and looked at the same tribe, and it was 100% different. And I said, what happened? The violent males ate poisoned food at a camp, a human campsite. They put poison in the trash. The violent males died. What were left were the females. And the females raised the young in a different way. And there was no more violence. This character of these species was no longer violent. Why? Because the females raised them. When the males were there, that was the hierarchy, male dominance, violence, strongest male gets to win everything and all that stuff like that. And in this particular case, when the males disappeared, a radical evolution of the group of these.
Yeah, well, I would push back on you because I'd say that we have a situation where there aren't many fathers in the home right now. And it's shown through like criminal data that like the number one underlying reason why people commit crime or link between these people is no father.
Let me add to this. There's a great story. It was in one of the national parks in Africa. There were too many elephants. The park couldn't support them. So they thought they airlifted the big bull elephants, picked them up, put them some other place. So now they were gone. Guess what happened? The young males became terrorists. They would destroy things. They would just, wantonly go and destroy some other animals' habitats and shit. They were, just as you just said, they lost that whole thing because the father elephants were gone. And the males, the big males, were gone. And the young males were terrorists. They no law, no boundary. They just exactly what you said. They had to bring back the old elephants because they were the ones that kept the young elephants in line. And when they were gone, the young elephants were, everything you just said about people, same exact thing with elephants.
Yeah, I just had a gender biologist on my podcast a few weeks ago. Her name's Dr. Sarah Hill, and she studies hormones and the female brain. And one thing she brought up that was really interesting is that young girls are going through puberty younger and younger and younger. Back in the mid-1900s, 1950s, girls were going through puberty at age 14. Now the average age is 9.
Okay, and here's the reason, you ready? It's called the biological imperative. All organisms are endowed with a system to survive. All animals are driven to survive, even a bacterium. You try and kill a bacterium, the lowest form, it's not going to go, oh, okay, kill me. It will do everything in its capabilities to survive. It's built in from the very beginning. There's two things of survival. Survival of the individual. Food, water, air, safety, shelter. These are things that are part of our biological imperative. But there's a second level, and it's called reproduction, to keep the species alive. One, keep the individual alive, and two, keep the species alive. If there's a threat on the species, the reproductive age gets younger and younger. That's built into nature. It's always been that way. You can observe it in the reality you just mentioned. But that is a natural part of what's called the biological imperative. A threat on this whole species, reproduce younger and faster, because that's the only way to keep the species going in the face of threat.
That's exactly what the doctor said.
That's it. And it's called the biological imperative. It's built in. Why is there a drive to survive? I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to stop breathing. It's like, yeah, until the point you pass out, and then the system will restart it again, because that's built into the system. You can't do that.
Yeah, so when we're in a period of a lot of chaos, when in a period of war, you see people going, probably men and women, going through puberty much younger just to...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is nature's way to keep the population alive and a general threat of the population going out. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
younger reproduction is much younger, much younger.
Yeah. And this doctor was saying that father in the home is the biggest determinant. If there's no father in the home, they go through puberty much, much younger.
Well, survival. You got to take it on their own, but are you going to do it in a way in harmony with the world and your species, or are you going to be an outcast, violent person? Well, we talked about that. It's like when the father image is gone, the young people they're on their own, and they lost the organization that kept them, especially with the elephants. I mean, that's clear as day.
Yeah, I've got a question about getting the right programs into your child when they're developing. We talked about the importance of the mother and the breast milk and the affection, but I'm curious to know like how a father can contribute to the really healthy programs and the healthy immune system.
The problem with that is, what does the father represent? Okay. In history of evolution, organisms at first were hermaphroditic. They were both male and female, okay? But specialization separated the male component from the female component. Why? One offered support and the other offered vegetation reproduction. Females do the vegetation reproduction. The male's job is to support and protect. They have different physiology. The male's body, support and protect, muscles, bone, and this is why males look at the silhouette. The body of the male is all this muscle and bone and stuff like that. The female body is more based on lipid than protein. That's why the breasts and the weight and all that. Because the lipid is the vegetative growth side, the protein is the protection side. Lipid is interesting because they're ring structures. Proteins are arrows, front and back end. And males are like the arrows lining up. Females can be in a group, in a circle, because that's the nature of the lipids. Totally different behavior, totally different physiology. And so the role of the male is support and protection. And its body is designed for that, while the body of the female is designed. That's why they were the farmers. They were the ones that grew the crops. They were the ones that raised the babies. As long as the males were there for support and protection. That was the original dichotomy of why it separated from one unity where they were both in the same thing. Yet males still have female hormones and females still have male hormones. Right, it's always a mix, but the proportions are completely different in regards to the hormones. So the male's job is to support and protect the females and the babies over to the next generation. We lose that when males don't have the right programming, and females don't get the right programming. The whole thing is gone at that point. This is the falling apart of a civilization. Homelessness is like unimaginable. How can people be homeless? It's against human nature to do that. But we're outside of human nature. We're programmed, and programming overrides nature. And then with bad programming, there you go. There we are.
Yeah, looking at some of these statistics in like fertility, testosterone, sperm count, they're all trending in these really shockingly downward trends. Like what we talked about earlier, how the planet doesn't have enough resources to support us. It seems like the planet is not going anywhere. We are.
That's the point. People say, "Oh, the planet's going to, it'll die." I go, "No." Chernobyl, great example. After the nuclear thing, they had to keep, it was a zone of exclusion. People were not allowed to be there. I said, then what happened? Well, if you look at the pictures of it, the city is a forest. Trees are growing out of the buildings. Trees are on the rooftops. It's a giant forest. Guess what? There are more wildlife in Chernobyl than anywhere else in the former Soviet Union. Why? Humans are not there. When humans are gone, nature brings everything right back to where it was. So when the tragedy comes, it's humans that are going to disappear. Nature will be just as strong as ever when she comes back. And we have to learn that, oh yeah, we're destroying the planet. No, we're destroying ourselves. The planet will always be healthy. It's us that are coming or going in this case.
That's beautiful. I mean, on a divine level, that is beautiful, that everything is a balance.
Yeah, and it's true. Wherever humans are not present, life will rebuild itself back to the majesty of the garden that it was before we got here.
I have a spiritual question for you. Deep spiritual question. Why do bad things happen to good people?
Well, number one, what was the programming of these people? Remember, good people could be, I'm in my conscious mind. A conscious human is a humanitarian. That's a human. Human nurturer. That's what we are. Programming puts us in the wrong place, okay? Number one. Number two, this is not your first trip to this planet. You came with a history before you got here. Karma. And we come in. Why? Because your life experiences in the past altered your source. So as a new one comes in, it's not from the same source. It's been modified from the previous life experience. And that's why we keep coming in to do what? Return to the karma back to the balance and harmony that it was. But our life experiences alter it. So what happens to those people? It's not their conscious life where the problem comes from. It's their subconscious programming, okay? The story that I said, Albert Einstein, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle or matter. A person's thoughts generate a field, but there are two sources of those thoughts. The conscious mind connected to the spirit, and the subconscious mind connected to the program. Well, they could be the most wonderful spirit people ever, but if they have a bad program, 95% of the day, the field they're generating will bring into their life the things that they don't want. And that's for all of us. If there's stuff that comes in the field you don't want, it's because somewhere along the line, your programming sends out a vibration. It's called resonance. Vibration is resonance. You send out a vibe, it will resonate with something with the same vibe. You send out love, it will resonate something that resonates love. If you send out fear, you're going to resonate with something that generates fear. And all of a sudden it says, oh, then my life is not an accident. I go, no, you've been creating it with whatever the vibes are coming out of your head.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
100%. I just said that, right.
Yeah.
If an embryo has the same set of antennas that are on my cell, I'm back in a different TV.
Is there any scientific evidence that there is reincarnation?
Oh, yeah. There's a great book, Hay House published it, it's John Leininger. Great story. A young kid who, as a young kid, had these nightmares of dying. And it was a war, and he was stuck in an airplane and was drowning in the sea. And he had recurrent dreams. And he knew all about airplanes. A little tiny kid, you know. He would tell his mom about, oh, this does that on the plane, and this is what we do. And they show him with an airplane and how he went under, and he was checking out the landing gear and all this stuff as a little kid. Then they started to find out, well, wait, where were you? And it was the war. We said, what war? And it was the Japanese. And they asked him, well, where were you? And he said, he was on a ship called the Natoma. And his name was John, but a different last name. First name was the same. So there was a reunion of the sailors on that ship. And they took the kid to the reunion, and guess what? He recognized the sailors that were at the reunion. He recognized them. He had a sister, recognized her, and they got in touch with her, and she gave all this information about him that he already knew. I mean, it's 100% this kid was that other kid. And the chances of it was just chance. No way. The Japanese media heard about the story and they brought him out to Japan. Ichijima, I think, was the place where his ship, where he went down. And they brought the kid out and sent the video. And he threw flowers over the boat, the kid, where he died. And the kid had a complete emotional breakdown at that moment. But guess what? It cleared him of that thing that was holding him back. Cleared his life, changed his life we're done with that, separated. But it's a great story because it's so documented. But there are stories of everybody that came back and said, oh yeah, I used to be I was born there, I had this name there, and I did this, and they go back, find the tombstones and things like that. So it turns out they had knowledge of something in the previous life of existence. Enough of it has occurred that coincidence, not likely. There's something connecting us from the past. If you ask your child, if you ask your daughter, when she's beginning to talk, really, they should do this. Where were you before you got here with us? Before you came with us? Where were you before? And if it's up to 3 years, I think, before 3, there'll be an answer. That she was somebody else, somewhere else, something, and then she got here. Around 3, that disappears permanently after that. But up to about 3, they'll have a memory of a previous existence.
That is amazing. I have heard a story similar to that where there was a woman in the early 1900s, I believe, and she got a head injury. And when she came out of the injury, she thought she was an Egyptian priestess or some high royalty in Egypt. And everybody thought she was crazy, but she could recall these very specific facts from Egypt. So then she ended up going to Egypt, and she was able to figure out where all these buried tombs were. And the archaeologists would dig where she said that the tomb was, and every time there'd be a tomb. And at the time, they didn't allow women to be on the sites, but they made an exception for her, and she went on to be like the most famous Egyptologist.
Yeah.
And her explanation was that she was this ancient priestess. Yeah.
Also find out about the fact that a number of people can spontaneously come up with a language that's completely different, like German. They're American, but all of a sudden they speak German. Where they came from, there's enough of those stories of language, especially, where they just had an innate knowledge of a complete language capability that isn't in their world at all. Complete.
Yeah. So do you think humans are capable of really extraordinary things, non-physical things like telepathy, teleportation?
Yeah. With telepathy especially, because our spirit is not contained within our body. It's everywhere. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes very important because it communicates everywhere. And we could be somewhere else and learn something from somewhere else completely. We're beyond the conventional physical, I'm this body, I'm here, I am dead, I'm back to dust again. Okay? The story of Abe and Alexander, that's a good one because that's the medical doctor I talked about who lost his cerebrum. It was mush, it was infected, lost all the cells, didn't even know he was a human. He was in energy, it was all he was. And then as the cells were regenerated, all of his memory came back. What was the point? Well, the memory couldn't have been in the cells because they're all new cells. But he downloaded all of his memory when the brain was rebuilt, which says the brain didn't hold the memory in it, the brain was a device to translate the memory.
Wow, it seems like we're living at this time where there's this synthetic future where we're trying to put chips in our brain. We're trying to access these.
Absolutely, the worst thing I could ever imagine any human ever doing, because you're not even expressing your potential as it is now, and you want to change your potential. Number two, when somebody puts a chip in your brain, who programmed it? And what can they get back? It's sort of like the camera on your computer. Yeah, I can use it when I want to talk FaceTime, but guess what? Somebody can see me when I'm not using it because it runs anyway. You know? The idea is you lose power. You lost control. I would never let anybody do that. Why? Fully experience who you are, and you'll surprise yourself because you're more powerful than you could ever imagine. And yet, we're ready to compromise that, saying, oh yeah, I can get more power from the chip. And I go, bullshit. Excuse me, that's the BS. Belief system. And the fact is what? It's basically, it's a violation. A violation of the human, which is so extremely powerful and so underrated and undereducated as to what you can do. We're not expressing anything of how powerful we are. We are creators. We're creating this whole damn thing. But unfortunately, people are creating from programs from other people, which is where the violence and all that comes from. You know, I mentioned a part about Israel, didn't I? About Tel Aviv, where I gave a lecture or not? Did I say that?
No.
Oh. Very interesting. I'm talking about programming, birth, all that stuff like that. We had a program in Tel Aviv at the university, and we invited a couple of busloads of 300 Palestinians from the West Bank. Most of them never even been in Israel. So the audience had Israelis on one side, and of course the Palestinians sitting on the other side. And I gave the story of programming without saying anything about it, how it occurs and blah, blah, blah. And then I showed them 2 slides. I'll never forget it because it was, boom, could have hit them with a rock at that moment. The first slide, when I brought it up, it said the problem, black screen, and then when I pushed the button, 2 pictures pop up. Israeli children playing with machine guns, young boys. Palestinian young boys dressed in military uniform carrying guns. Listen, this is programming. You're programming them to hate each other. They don't even know each other. You're already programming hatred. You're programming the violence right here. Look at this picture. And then I show the next slide, the solution, black screen. And when I push the button, 2 pictures come up. An Arab girl, an Israeli girl walking arm in arm, an Arab boy and an Israeli boy being friendly together. I said, this is a solution. I said, what is it? I said, you're programming violence. You've been programming it for generations. It's still programming. I said, how can you get out? I said, look, these kids that play together as kids will never fight each other. That's not in their program. And what made it so interesting for me, besides the fact that I thought it was a great set of slides, was the absolute dead quiet silence. The air was sucked out of the room because for a moment they saw exactly what I was talking about. You guys have been programming this violence, and it passes from generation to generation. You're not normally violent. It's a program that's making you do this. And 2 friends of ours, Ehab and Aura, great story. She's Israeli, he's Palestinian. They were both walking in the Sinai Desert for different reasons, coming towards each other. And they got hit by the proverbial thunderbolt, like in The Godfather. They stopped about 10 feet apart from each other. They looked at each other, and the world changed. They got married in 3 days. She went home, told her parents that she married a Palestinian, they disowned her. Get out of here, you can't be part of our family. He went home and told his father chased him around the house with a knife to kill him. He said that is the worst thing you could ever do. Then they come together, and they're opposite, but they come together and learn each other and become, they're love. They have a baby, like 2 babies. They have a boy, and it's time to go to school. then all of a sudden it says, where do we send the kid to school? They went to the Israeli school and said, no, man, they're practicing this violation, separation, all that kind of shit like that. Then they went to the Arab school, it was even worse. They said, no, this is bad programming, it's really like that. So they opted and said, let's go to the Christian school, and then they both agreed, get the hell out of there. That was worse than both of the other ones. They started their own school called the Garden of Abraham. It's a school for 4, 5, 6 years old, 3, 4, 5, 6. A Garden of Abraham because Abraham was the prophet for both the Israelis and the Arabs. And they started the school. And the kids grow up together. And they learn each other's languages. Kids pick this up almost instantaneously. They learn each other's language, they play with each other, they enjoy each other, they go to school, they look forward to hanging out with each other. Even the parents started getting involved because the Arab parents brought their kids there and the Israeli parents, and then the parents got together and they started doing this. And they created this most wonderful situation where the kids grow up together, nonviolent, 100% nonviolent. When I was at this conference, several mayors from around Israel wanted to meet with the Or and Ehab because they said, we need schools like this as well. And they're running the programs. I get newsletters from them every month or so from them. But what was the point? All of a sudden, there was no conflict with Arabs and Israelis. When the kids grew up together, the parents couldn't fight with them. The parents got along with each other. They created this community that brought peace in Jaffa in Israel because the parents of both groups said this is for our children, and they see how their children were so healthy and loving of each other, and there would be no way that those kids in that school would ever fight each other. It would never happen. This is the kind of thing that the future is really requiring because it was programming that made the problem.
That's a beautiful story. Yeah, it reminds me of a story that happened on Christmas Day in World War I, a very famous story where...
Silent Night? They made a movie about it, I think, where the soldiers on
opposite sides and
fighting.
For one day they played a soccer game and they shared food, and unfortunately I think they went back to fighting their war, but...
I think they went back, but there was that piece where they were dancing and partying Christmas together. Here's another story. I met a guy from Yugoslavia, not Yugoslavia, Ukraine. We were talking on the plane, and I started to ask him what about the issue with the Russians. He said, we have no problem with the Russians. The Russians have no problem with us. I said, what do you mean? He said, we've been neighbors across the border for hundreds of years. We don't fight each other. It's the government that caused this. And then what they did, the neighbors, is if the Russians were going to make an attack, they called up the Ukrainians and say, on Thursday, we're making an attack over here at this time, blah, blah, blah. And the Ukrainians, when they were going to make an attack, the Ukrainians would call the Russians and say, we're coming over here on this day at this time. Why? They didn't want to fight each other. They had nothing to do with it. It was the damn governments on both sides. That the Ukrainians and the Russians near the border had always grown up together. It was the same kind of story.
Yeah.
Some central people said make a war. The local people had no intention of doing anything like that at all.
It's like all this division is built on ignorance, right? So, you have, if you could just get Democrats and Republicans to just go on a hike together, do a workout together, go on a trip together.
Okay, let me give you a story that should be included in this, okay? The Arab Spring started in Tunisia. And it started on a day that a guy who was selling stuff off a cart put himself in front of the government building, doused himself with gasoline, and burned himself alive. In protest of what? He said, the government's killing me. There was the taxing him, ripping him off, the police and all that stuff. And he just, I can't do this anymore. He burned himself, and that was day one Arab Spring. And the people of Tunisia threw out the dictator. And now they were having a government with no leader. And for the first period of months after that, no progress was made because in the Congress or Parliament, whatever they call it, the two sides were fighting each other as always. My side, your side, my side. Nobody got anywhere. Then things changed because women were voted in to the Parliament, first time. And the women changed the game. They said, look, all you guys have been doing is arguing over the things you don't like about each other. Why don't we start with, what are the things we both agree on? And build from what we agree on. And they wrote a constitution, true story, that is the best constitution ever in the world for governing the people. It got the Nobel Prize. They got the Nobel Prize for their constitution and the peace. But the problem is, of course, you still had the older people there, and it wasn't easy to get it established. But just to let you know, what was the difference? They brought the women in. The men were fighting over my side versus your side, and the women said, no, start with what we agree on and build from there. You agree on education? Yeah. You agree on health? Yeah, we should do that. You agree on this? Yeah, we should do that. And I said, and all of a sudden they built a very peaceful place because they no longer was the focus on disagreement. The focus was on, we can do this together. And this is what we can't do at this present time in the world that we live here. There is no middle ground for them to come together. Not enough women to voice, just a whole bunch of old men. Need more women in there.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for the younger generation? People that are feeling anxious about their futures, people that feel that AI is taking over everything?
Yeah. To understand who they are, learn that they've been programmed, learn they can get out of the program, learn that they could come together and create what they want, learn that Buckminster Fuller, the futurist, said, don't go in and fight the existing system. Step outside, build a new system. And when that's working, those people will come to you. And that's what we need to do. And that's what's happening. The system is breaking down. It's time to build a new system and start it. And if the system works, people will gravitate to it right away. So it says there's a future that they should recognize they're in an upheaval, so that when they look at the world falling apart, instead of getting caught up in what was coming down, they should recognize what is coming up. In my lecture, I talk about a caterpillar going to a butterfly. A caterpillar is made out of millions of cells. Cells are miniature people. I go, a caterpillar is the most voracious of organisms. They eat every damn leaf off a plant, and just maximize. When there's no more food, they get into a cocoon. I said, what happens in a cocoon? I said, well, the jobs are gone. Digestive system, don't need that, we're not eating. Muscle system, we don't need them, we're not moving. Cells lost their jobs. And it broke down. This caterpillar was breaking down. But as the caterpillar was breaking down, there was another group of cells called imaginal cells. People think imagination, but it comes from the word imago. Imago means baby, like a immature insect that changes. So imaginal cells. So keep it imaginal, people like that. Imaginal cells come up with a new way of organizing, creating a butterfly. So one population is breaking down, and another population is building up simultaneously in the middle of what's chaos, in the middle of all this. Well, we're in that place right now. You can either hold on to the one that's coming down, or let go, and start to accumulate, come together in a community of what we're building up versus what's coming down. We're going through a metamorphosis of civilization at this point. And it's neat because from the most voracious organism, a caterpillar, to the butterfly, the lightest touch. The butterfly hardly even touches the planet. We are given this opportunity coming from our current voracious civilization, breaking down, but building a new one. And the young people should know there is a movement. If you stick with the one that's coming down, that's a horror. Every day it's horror. If you thinking about building something up, you get a community, you find a community of like-minded people, you start working together, you got something positive, now you're moving in that direction. But if you don't see it, then all you're stuck with is the one coming down, all you have is fear. Fear, illness, disempowerment, all those things. That's what the fear is.
I love that. Build something new. It's very inspiring. And I just want to say thank you because you've inspired me in many ways. And I think about your words every day, like literally every day when I'm thinking, oh, I'm not using my conscious brain, or like when my daughter looks at me and I'm not doing something that is going to give her a good program. You've made me very aware of the programs that I'm giving her.
But this is what's the beautiful part about a relationship with your partner is because you cannot see the program when you're playing it because you're not paying attention. She sees what you're saying. Now, in a general relationship with most people, that's when arguments start. And it goes nowhere except downhill. But what if you knew that what that other person just said, that wasn't them, it came from a program? Then all of a sudden it's like, well, let's change the program. That's a better resolution because you can talk about it and become more positive and lead to a change in the program so that both of you get very positive vibe from doing that. Otherwise, it's an argument which leads to the breakup of the system. And so both partners have to know when that bad behavior comes out, it's not the person that they met. Why? When you fell in love, remember you took the red pill? You didn't play any of the bad programs.
Right.
So your partner never saw any of the bad programs until you start thinking. And then they show up and then your partner goes, who are you? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Because that was never part of the relationship. And then when it shows up, it's not very positive and it's very destructive.
Well, the next time I do something wrong, I can say, it was the program.
Yeah, but if she recognizes it was the program, see, that's where the feedback comes in. If no one tells you you just said bullshit, then you don't know it and you just keep repeating bullshit. And friends don't want to tell each other that because it might challenge the friendship. You're just being an idiot, what you just said. What did I say,
But a true friendship is you let it fly.
The true friendship is, if I did it wrong, I need to be alerted, told, reference. Did you mean to say that? What did I say? I didn't hear it. Why? It was an automatic program. How the hell did I know? But instead of an argument, that's when people can come together, and then when they understand this, they can fix it, rewrite the program, and as a result, what happens? You rewrite all the negative programs, and here comes the most beautiful part of the whole world, right here, right there. That's what? Whether I'm running my life, my conscious mind, and engaging my wishes and desires, or I'm thinking, and my subconscious is running it, but the programs are the same as my wishes and desires, I win whether I'm thinking or I'm not thinking, because the programs are all going to take me to the same place.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to go back and watch this podcast repeatedly and try to get that habit ingrained in me.
Is this a podcast? I mean, all the things I said, this is going to be like
yeah.
Well, I presume you're going to do editing and fixing.
Oh, yeah. Well,
okay.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But anyways, I want to
Because it was not linear, was it? You had questions? I didn't stop to say, ask me a question.
Oh, no. I mean, when you're talking, I'm listening. That's my program. So anyways, I just want to say thank you so much. And I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate this opportunity because anytime you can offer a message to bring peace and harmony, man, we need it now more than ever before. That old hippie thing, you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. I prefer the solution.
I agree.
Yeah, and you are the solution.
Thank you. You are too. Thank you, Dr. Bruce Lipton. Check out his books, Biology of Belief, Honeymoon Effect.
Spontaneous Evolution.
Yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. Thanks. That's great. Thank you so much.
I hope it was useful because it was just run on and I didn't even stop to say, so what was the question?
Oh, no. I mean, you pretty much answered every question I had.
Oh.